Hey guys, back for the completion of the movie Fools Rush In. As we were completing, I find it so climactic that the part I had to cut the video off was right at the point where I was making the point of Alex, Matthew Perry's character, was standing at the borderline waiting for her to come cross over. We are at the crossover point. A lot of us feel like we can't see the forest for the trees. I heard a story told back a few years ago by a minister. He was talking about there was a woman, she did a triathlon. A triathlon, I believe you run, you bike, and then you have to swim. This was 29 miles, I think. The last 10 miles had to be swam because it was like something like you had to go what, somewhere like 9.5 miles running, then another 9.5 miles on a bike, and then that last 10 miles swimming. The woman was swimming. She swam, she saw shore, but fog rolled in. She became disoriented, and she called herself swimming, but she got disoriented, became a little petrified. She was exhausted at this point, and she just gave up. She raised her white flag. It was like, I'm done. They pulled her on the boat, and come to find out, the fog cleared. She was exactly 1 mile from shore. If she kept going in the direction that she was going, she'd have made it that 1 mile and been able to win the race. This is where a lot of us feel like we are. The Lord has been taking us through a process. We went through our long run. We felt like we've already went through the cycling of going through the bikes. We felt like we have been swimming out here on Titanic level waters, ice cold barges, and we feel like that the only way we get into shore is the fact that we are going to wash up on the debris. There's a scripture that talks about that in the Bible. It talks about how, if you wash, that you will wash up onto the shore on broken pieces. So that's where a lot of us are. We on our last mile, and lo and behold, the enemy has sent in fog. In legitimate reality, there has been an ice storm that was sent over the past 2 to 3 days that has brought the temperature down all over the United States. And this ice storm has made it so cold that people are like, they can't fly nowhere, they can't do nothing. But what it is it's not so much that was the devil. That actually wasn't the devil. Remember that something can be done, but God will always use it. Funny enough, in that scene where Matthew Perry is standing at the borderline between Arizona and Nevada, it starts torrentially downpouring. Listen and hear me when I say this. God is about to pour into your life a level of blessing that is exceedingly abundantly more than you could ask for or believe. The Lord showed me in a dream recently. I walked outside of where I was, And when I stepped outside, it was torrentially pouring. Torrential downpour means blessings, favor, all of this. Deuteronomy 28:2 states, the blessings shall come forth and overtake you. And I have been saying for days, Amos 9:13, talking about the blessings that will pour out on from the hills. Everywhere you look, there will be blessings upon blessings upon blessings. Torrential downpour. She's driving up. When she drives up and sees him, he steps directly in front of her car. Those of y'all waiting on your God ordained spouse. You sitting up there thinking this is going to happen. I have been hearing, and this is something God's been telling me. I'm not saying a year. I'm not saying 2 years. He's been saying this between 3 to 4 years to me. It's closer than you think. It's closer than you think. He's the Kingdom released a word talking about your blind, I think it's called your blind spot. When objects that appear farther away but are actually closer to you. And it was another young woman I listened to. I don't know whether it was just Emily or Servant of God, but somebody recently said same thing. One of the two of them said same thing. That it's closer than you think. Some of us are going to just end up walking right up on it, or it's going to walk up right on us. I remember one of the young women I used to watch, it may have been Journey to Purity, did a video where she was talking about how God has the way of organizing and orchestrating a person's steps. Remember how in the beginning of this movie, we talked about how, she was standing at the telephone, and she said that the Lord has a way of orchestrating your steps, that two people will be in the right place at the exact same time that they need to be. Well, the fact of the matter is that God knows this. He knows when you're supposed to be, where you're supposed to be, at what point in time, and with that thing, all things that you were concerned about are going to orchestrate themselves. Journey to Purity did a video where she said that in the dream, she was someplace, and the guy who was represented the God ordained spouse showed up, but he looked confused. And when she questioned it in the dream, the guy said, I don't even know how I got here. Some of your spouses are going to be led to you in such a way, whether it be you led to them or them to you, that when it happens, only God will be able to get the glory on how that occurred, because you or they will not know how the two of you ended up in the same place. It was a recent case. Tiffany Montgomery was talking about how this young woman, she just recently got married, and they courted for about 3 or 4 months. And the woman said the day she met her husband, she went to this location. She wasn't supposed to particularly be there that day, but she came to drop something off. The day that she went, her God-ordained husband just so happened came in at the same time that she was there, and he was not supposed to be there. He had quit that job and was not going to come back. But because of something he had to drop off or pick up, he showed up at the exact same time that she was there, and he was not supposed to be there. He was never supposed to return to that location. But because he obediently showed up at the same time, he met her, and they are now married. God will orchestrate a scenario where neither one of you know how in the world y'all ended up crossing paths, because it makes no sense how you both ended up in the same place at the same time. And the way that it would be done, is so God that you're like, yeah, I can't explain. It's just, this is God. So he's standing in front of her car and she's like, Alex, move. And then she gets out the car. She's like, are you crazy? Because somebody almost had a car accident, bumped into her, but they swerved their car. And she gets out and she starts yelling at him while it's now raining. And while they're arguing, her water breaks. At the point of you crossing over to where you're supposed to be, the water, the dam is going to break upon the impact and or you coming into association with the person and or peoples that you're supposed to come into contact with, that when this happens, the favor on you is going to bring about a chain reaction that will bring about the delivery of the thing in which you've been toiling to try to get done all the way up until this point. Because she went into labor. And when I say she went into labor, that when they knew that she was in labor, they had to pull I think it was a traffic cop showed up. I don't know how long was the time difference of when that traffic cop showed up and her announcing when she was in labor, because the scene shifted. But they had pulled her to the side and had laid her down on a blanket, and when they checked her dilation, they said, oh, there is no time to get you to no hospital. The ambulance was arriving with the fire truck, and they said, we can't even move you. It's like, you're going to have to push right now. And that's what's going to happen. A lot of us, we're sitting here thinking that we're going to be able to, oh, I'm going to just get to the other side of this situation. Things are going to be cool. I'm going to be able to relax and it's going to be all chill. And God's saying, nah, your contraction for what it is that I've been trying to get you to birth up until this point, it's about to get real fast and real heavy. Go back to the previous film review where I was talking about everything showing up all at once for last holiday. You show up where you're supposed to be. You cross over into that place that you're supposed to be. Everything's going to culminate at the exact time that it's supposed to. You are going to meet your blessing in the place that you were supposed to show. She had to drive from New Mexico back to Las Vegas because all of her blessings was in Vegas, associated to what? Him. He had to leave New York and come back to Vegas because why? The blessings that were associated were right there in Las Vegas. So when she crossed the crossing to come into Vegas, she went into labor. Some of us have to get to the location in which God's saying our blessing is in, and that's what's going to trigger the chain reaction for all of the release of the torrential downpour of the abundance of blessings, as according to Deuteronomy 28:2, that the blessings shall come forth and overtake you, and the Amos 9:13. You got to be in the right place and you will meet them. But God has a way of, he will orchestrate things that all things will be taken care of to make sure that you meet that situation, whether it be that you meet the person that's going to transport you to the place that the blessing is going to happen, or vice versa. But it's coming. It's coming together quickly. So she goes into labor and she's fussing him. I don't want to be with you. Don't want to, because she filed for divorce. Like 2-3 months before that, because she was acting all cowardice, as you can see in the previous movie part of the review, that she didn't want, had nothing to do with him. She was fussing him out and she was talking about all this kind of stuff like, I don't want to, and her abuela had to tell her, no, you scared. That's the only thing that's wrong with you. You're scared it's going to actually work. But she had to be in the right place at the right time. And the fact of the matter, some of y'all go watch Prophet Productions. She talks about what happens when she dealt with being separated from her God ordained spouse, him marrying a whole nother person, getting divorced and coming back to her. Let's be to Jesus. for those of us that didn't have to see your God ordained spouse go marry somebody completely different, because a lot of people give up on when that type of stuff happens. But when you didn't get to see that foolishness side of the scenario with your God ordained spouse, you just got to see the part where you waiting for them to come back to you, or waiting for them to come to you. So she's screaming at him, I don't want this, that, and the other. And he's like, don't worry about it. And she starts to push. It takes 3 pushes for her to get the baby out. And she switches from the first push, she's talking about, I don't want to deal with you. I don't blah, blah, blah. By the second push, she's like, I'm so sorry, this, that, and the other. And then she has her 3rd push. Now, remember the coins. When they put her on the ambulance and they've loaded her up and she's laying there with the baby on her chest, he goes out and takes her coin and throws it into the dam. I believe that's representative of, at the point of the crossing over, it's almost like the bringing together of, you have now finally come to the crossing point. And at this point, it was the crossing point to enter. If you paid attention, which if you watch the movie, you see them come together at that same point in the dam a few times. The first night she arrives, after when she tells him, the first night that she arrives in Nevada when they first meet, when she's preparing to leave and they come back for his car, then there's a scene where they're actually at a canyon and they are looking over the ravine. And the last scene is when she comes across the border to give birth to the child. The whole movie in itself is a series of crossing over state lines. You're crossing over boundaries, crossing over chasms, valleys, taking leaps into places, making major adjustments, the whole film. And that's what a process is. Sometimes a process is taking that leap in order to get to where you need to go. And sometimes your crossover leads into you taking a jump into an area and a place in a space that you would not normally go into, but is going to bring about the balance and the manifestation of the thing in which you were seeking. And in that point, they come to the point of understanding that after he throws that coin in there, he comes to get back in the ambulance. They look at the clock to find out that they were officially divorced. Some of you are going to have a reset. Some of you, your Isaac and Rebecca moment is your reset. Because when your God ordained spouse returns, they're going to want to do it again. Meaning it's time for you guys to get married again. Because the last scene of the film is them standing at the canyon, the very same chasm, getting married again. This time the right way. Some of you have to get married again because this is your do it right moment. And for others, this is your moment. As I said, go back and look at the Mary and Joseph word I did a couple of days ago, where I talk about when I first mentioned this film, Fools Rush In, that the Lord gave me while I was doing that word. And as you can see, this is very relevant to that word. That it's a transitionary point. A lot of us at the transitionary point, and it comes with a leap. It comes with going across the chasm. It comes with going and trusting a new situation, new relationship so on and so forth. A lot of us are jumping into marriages. A lot of us are jumping into situations. The people that we are associated with, they are not going to understand why we are doing this. And this is why the Lord is saying, I've gotten so many confirmations in the past few days, but it's something that I've known for a long period of time. When it happens, shh. Hearing that LL Cool J song, Hush, Hush. You got to keep this relationship hush, hush. When this thing happens, because you have to think coherently that when it happens, nobody's going to be able, especially if you haven't been bragging about the fact that it was going to happen. If you haven't been talking about this and it shows up and you go on ahead and do what you're going to do, the next thing people are going to see is you walking around with a ring on your finger, and they're going to wonder, why this? Where'd that come from? Who win? And why? God is going to put y'all two in a scenario where y'all going to have to associate with each other so y'all can build the foundation necessary so that when the Lord says, okay, now you can open that door, you have to understand that when you open that door, if you know your family, they're all going to be like, when this happened? Why? Who is this? What is this? You're going to end up with a barrage of questions and how this ended up happening. So you're going to have to prepare. Lord showed me in a dream recently the level of preparation. There is going to be a preparation period that is necessary when you have this moment where you're going to literally have to, the time that you are going to isolate with your spouse is not just because y'all going to be on your honeymoon phase. It's because you have to both prepare mentally and emotionally to get things in order so that you can confront your family. Because the next thing you're going to be confronting your family with more than likely is the preparation for you to do the official ceremony. And depending on, just like I said in Mary and Joseph, you might be pregnant when that happens. So people are going to be wondering, excuse me? Are we having a shotgun wedding? Did y'all really? People going to start talking. There's going to be a lot of chatter. There's going to be a lot of rumors going around, all that kind of stuff. Did they, what, why they, and then was she, and why him, and y'all know. 70p was talking about this a couple of days ago, and she did a video about 2 months ago where she was talking about people. It doesn't matter how much work you did, how much prayer you did, how much this you did, how much that you did. People still gonna talk. If you did it in an organized way, just because it happened so fast for you, they're gonna have rumors about it because it's like people are okay with you. That's what she was saying in the last video. She said people gonna be okay with you as long as you're on their level. But when they see God elevate you at this rapid of a pace, it's like, what you do to deserve that? What was you doing? What kind of favors you do in order to get that at level? What you do for him? What she do for you? What's up? You telling me somebody of that status did that for you? And you didn't do nothing for them? Yeah, that's the way your family gonna be. Side underhanded comments. Because to them, that's the only way something like that can happen. But to us, we know that if we walking with God, God already orchestrated this sucker. Oh, he's been doing this for years. So you got to be mentally and emotionally prepared for the judgment that may come for this. But the Lord has allowed you to have certain witnesses so that when it does happen, those witnesses can't help but say, yeah, she or he told me something was about to happen. I didn't believe them when they said it the first time. But now that they're repeating it now, and I'm seeing what I'm seeing in manifestation before me, they did tell me that was going to happen. God allows you to tell certain people certain things just because he wants to say, when the time comes and the manifestation comes the way that it's supposed to, he'll be able to say, remember that. They already told you that. So yeah. So that's pretty much the end of the film. I actually was not expecting to be on here this long for the end of that film, because it wasn't. I only told you about 2 scenes for the end of the film, but all of this stuff was relevant in relation to the way that film ended. So I wanted to make sure I told you that. Otherwise, I hope this blessed you. Until next time.